Joining me now to discuss retired NASA astronaut Leroy Chiao. Great to have you with us this morning. A couple of interesting things I want to pick up on there that we just heard. Chris Bosshausen, who wanted to be an astronaut from the time he was 4, he said this is really a dream come true for him, to get that close and have those 4 minutes of weightlessness up there. But he says, we all sort of calculated the risk here. You heard William Shatner talking about safety. And I had also asked them if they were concerned at all after this letter came out from 21 current and former employees at Blue Origin who cited safety as a concern. When you look at how quickly all these things are happening, where does your mind go in terms of safety?
In terms of safety, the commercial space industry and commercial space companies are very, very cognizant that if they were to suffer an accident, especially early on in these attempts, that would basically shut them down. So in a big picture sense, I don't believe any of these companies are going to be launching individuals to touch space or even into orbit later without being confident in their safety process and their actual rockets and spacecraft and systems. So while there's always going to be risk, and no matter what you do, especially if you're climbing on board a rocket, you weigh the risk-reward ratio and decide for yourself whether you're willing to take that risk. But at a high level, as I said, I believe these systems and these companies believe their systems are safe.
You actually spoke with William Shatner just a couple of months ago on his podcast. Didn't have any indication at that point he was going to be on this Blue Origin flight. What were your thoughts when you heard that he was, in fact, going up?
Yeah, I had a great interview with him. I was very impressed that as a 90-year-old person that he was in such great shape and very mentally sharp and alert, asked some funny questions. We had a great time, and really was a surprise to learn that he's about to go fly with Blue Origin and touch space. And I thought it was fantastic that here's a guy I grew up with watching as Captain Kirk, helped inspire me to want to be an astronaut myself, finally getting his chance to go up into space and get that spectacular experience in view.
I mean, you can see the excitement and a little bit of terror, as William Shatner pointed out, but overall the excitement from everybody who is preparing to go into space. And one of the other members of his crew, Glenn DeVries, talked about how he's making this $1 million donation to water.org. He wants to raise awareness for the environmental issues, the other issues, back home on planet Earth as part of this trip. There's also been a lot made about the environmental impact of space tourism and these missions. Do you think that's being given enough attention?
The environmental impact of the space tourism, if you will, is fairly minimal. And that's because the fuels that are being used in the rockets are by and large kerosene and liquid oxygen or other fairly green type of propellants, as opposed to in the past there have been some pretty nasty chemicals used because of their efficiency. And all countries and companies are going away from those fuels partly because of the environmental concern, but also partly because of the safety concern. These other propellants are very, very toxic. So we're seeing a big shift from everyone towards more, if you will, green propellants.
I do want to ask you quickly before we let you go. I asked all 4 of them if they would consider themselves astronauts after this trip. Audrey Powers, who spent a lot of time at NASA, has quite the background, said she would happily take that title. William Shatner said his would be with a small a, astronaut. SS was his answer. I'm curious, do you consider folks who make this 11-minute flight astronauts once they're back on Earth?
I have no problem at all personally with them taking that, accepting that astronaut title. However, I would say it's a lot like getting an honorary doctorate degree or an honorary knighthood for that matter. So, as long as they don't really go out and try to use that title, I think it's fine.
Leroy Chiao, good to have you. Thank you.
Good to be with you.